Hello, welcome to AR Accuracy. Today the topic of discussion will be components that I use for long range precision. Okay, this is about building your ammo. The very first thing, I'm going to start with bullets. What's optimal for long range, doesn't matter if it's a 30 caliber round, a 6.5, 7 millimeter, it doesn't matter, is heavy for caliber, high BC bullets. Okay, and oddly enough, I'm going to start off with one that's not heavy for caliber. Everything here, we're talking about reloading for a 223 AR, 223 or a 5.56. Mine happens to be chambered in 223. I think the chamber's 223 wild. So the throat dimension. Now you can look at it. If you need to know what it is, I can go over it. Just ask me a question in the comments, and I'll go over the difference between a wild, a 223, and a 5.56 chamber. But I don't feel like doing that right now. But the first bullet I'm discussing is a 53 grain Nosler Varmageddon. Obviously not a high BC, heavy for caliber bullet, but it is a fantastic performer in my rifle and in Mike's rifle. Even though one of my rifles is a 1-in-7 twist, the other one's a 1-in-8, this bullet still does very well. Now the 223 with these powders, which I'll go over in a second, I get around 3,400 feet per second velocity with this little bullet. And it's a varmint bullet. I wouldn't take it out much past probably 500 yards. The reason being, you get any type of wind whatsoever, and my goodness, you'll be chasing impacts all day long if there's wind gusts, and if it's not steady, you're chasing it. I'm not interested in that. That sucks. The next bullet I want to go over is the 73 grain ELDM. My rifle absolutely loves this bullet. And I think one of the reasons it really likes it, I load everything to mag length, magazine length. I don't load them really long. Mike does on some of his bullets, like the 80 grains, I'll go over that. But being mag length, I think my maximum out of the magazine I use right now is 2.265 overall length. Okay, that's not very long. And this bullet is a lot more forgiving when it comes to jump. Because at 2.265, I think I'm about 40 thousandths, 45 thousandths off the lands. It's quite a jump, in my opinion. It's quite a jump. Okay, but it does wonderful. I shoot right around 2,900 feet per second with this one. The next one's a 75 grainer, same thing, shoot around 2,900 feet per second with a 5 grainer, or 75 grainer, sorry. This is just a regular Hornady match bullet. It's an old school match bullet, it has a metallic knee pad on it. Looks like a hollow point, when they extrude the jacket over and make the tip of the bullet. At the end, they have to pull the post out, so it leaves a little tiny hole. It's not a true hollow point, but it looks like a hollow point. But anyways, this bullet, it does okay in my rifle. It's more finicky when it comes to seating depth. This one, because I think Mike played with it a little bit, it shoots better when you get it about, I think it was 20 thousandths off the lands. It does pretty good, but at 35, 40 thousandths off the lands, it doesn't like that so much, my rifle. It's still subbing away. It'll shoot 3/4 inch groups all day long. But, talking about long range precision, so obviously the more precise, the better. Take out some of the variables, that's always best. The next bullet I want to go over is the Sierra tipped Match King. This isn't the old school Match Kings like I grew up shooting, the 168s out of the 30 cal, Sierra 168 grain Match Kings. But this one, it's a 77 grainer. And my rifle is kind of indifferent. It shot it at about the same as it did the 75s, and I think it's due to seating depth. If I load these out and play with them, on the lands, just off the lands by 5 thousandths, 10, 15, 20 thousandths, I think it'd be a shooter, because my 30 cal loves these bullets, the 168 grain tip Match Kings. But I can seat them out longer. And as a matter of fact, I shoot those at about 20 thousandths off the lands. Loves them, eats them up. And then the last one is the 80 grainers. And that's a monster bullet for a 223. But there's boys who go up to Perry, they're shooting 90 grainers. That's a big old bullet, 90 grainers. I haven't played around a bunch with these. I'm going to once I get a stainless magazine, and I'm going to cut a relief. I saw Mike do this. Worked great. He cut a relief in the front of the part of the magazine that faces forward on the rifle. Cut a notch in it so he could load the projectiles out longer. I think he got the overall length on those out to 2.45 was the overall length. They shot stupendous in his rifle, very well. Obviously the velocities are quite a bit slower, but it's a big old lumbering projectile headed down range. It bucks the wind pretty well for a 22 caliber. It bucks the wind pretty well. This one will take me out to 1,000. So will this one. Probably not the 75 just because the old school design. And I think this 73 grainer gets me to 1,000 out of a 223. It's a modern design, super long nose on it, high BC, good projectile. Next thing I want to go over is primers. Oh, let's back up to this. It looks like I'm a complete Hornady fanboy. I kind of am. They perform very well. And everything I have, whether it's the 338, the 308, 22 caliber, they just perform well. The ELDM line of bullets, from my experience and everything I shoot them in, they're not overly susceptible to seating depth. My 30 cal kind of likes them right around 20 thou off the lands, just like it does the Sierra Tip Match Kings. But it's still eat them at, whether you put them at 10,000 off, 30,000 off, it'll still shoot them very well. All right, back to this. The primers I use are bench rest or BR4s, CCIs. I like CCI primers. I've tried a plethora of other primers, but these have been the most consistent primers I've tried. They're very good. I kind of like CCI primers. We don't get super cold here in Ohio. At the most, I think maybe negative 15, negative 20. But when it's that cold, I really don't feel like going out and shooting. So that's not a whole bunch of fun. But I've never had a problem with ignition out of these, not once. Very consistent. I shoot very good groups, very precise. I like these. Next thing is brass. I was using Frontier brass. Is it Federal? Yeah, Federal Frontier ammo. I bought a bunch of it just because it had a higher weight bullet, and I really wanted the brass after I was done shooting those. I think they're 69 grain Hornadys, as a matter of fact, loaded at the factory. And the brass, it's made by Lake City. I love Lake City brass. I have a bunch of Lake City brass for the 308, and I have Loplo brass for the 308. Lake City brass is, in my opinion, it depends on the lots, how far back you go, but it's good brass. It's heavy, thick walls, but it's very good brass. In the 223, I also used this SIG brass on my cousin Mike's recommendation. I measured this out from the first piece to the last piece. I don't think I was much over a grain. Yeah, one complete grain difference in weight on this brass. Very consistent. Obviously one lot to the next would be different, but this particular one right here, one total grain of weight difference from the first piece of brass I measured all the way out to the 100th piece. What I didn't do was do the volumetric measuring like with water. Mike's done that and said they're very consistent as well, if memory serves. So that's impressive. That's kind of important. It's just the stuff I'm going over. It just helps eliminate variables that get in your way that would make you, have an impact at 1,500 at 1,000 yards versus a miss right off the edge of the plate. Is because of one of the small variables you could have controlled. So next it would be powder. In the 223, I'm using Hodgdon product, and this is why. Are they extreme? They are the extreme line of powders. By color, this should be H4895 and this should be Varget. Yeah. H4895, I also use it in the 308. And the Varget, I also use it in the 308. It does very well. And why I use them is because of the temperature sensitivity factor. You know, in Ohio, we don't, it's not like North Dakota or Wyoming or anything like that, but, you know, we go from 0 degrees, you know, in the winter, or -0 by a little bit, you know, -5, 10 degrees, maybe up to 20 on a horrible winter. This winter was mild, it was weird. But, you know, go from 0 degrees in the winter up to 105 in the summer. Big swing. I didn't want to keep messing around with changing my loads in case I accidentally had a load I loaded up for winter shooting, you know, with a more volatile powder, and then forgot and didn't shoot it all and accidentally shot it in the summer, and all of a sudden there's a massive pressure problem. These powders keep that from happening. I think the temperature sensitivity factor on H4895, I think, is 0.23. I think it is 0.16 on the Varget, and there's a powder I don't have. I haven't used it yet, and Mike says that he likes the powder. I might give it a try. I might give it a try in the 308 and the 223. It's Reloader 16. I believe its temperature sensitivity factor is all the way down to 0.11. I think. I'll have to double check that, or you can tell me I'm wrong, you looked it up and I'm way off. But I believe that's what it is. And if memory serves, the temperature sensitivity factor, like say the 0.23 for this, means that for every degree Fahrenheit of temperature you can go 0.23, oh, did I do that wrong? I think I did. It's 0.23 feet per second for every degree Fahrenheit of temperature. So 0.23 feet per second. And this one, I think 0.16, so 0.16 feet per second increase for every 1 degree Fahrenheit you go up in temperature. And then obviously vice versa. If you go down a degree, it slows down by 0.16 feet per second. So, you know, that it helps with consistency, my opinion. I do the same thing like in the in the 338. I use H1000 right now. I also have Rotumbo and Reloader 33. Now the Reloader 33 was not temperature stable in my testing, but it shot awesome. It sucks that it shot so good. It shot very well, just not stable as far as the temperature swings, and it's very dirty. It's also a very dirty powder. These two, I've noticed, they're not terribly dirty, and being an extreme powder, you know, they have that coating all over the powder that helps control the burn, and so they're wonderful powders. Now, what I'd like to go over now, you know, my next video, and please comment, tell me what you'd be interested in hearing or discussing, because I'd like to go to the comment sections. I'm just starting out, so I don't have a lot of comments, but that's okay. It'll come. But I'd like to hear your opinions, have questions from you, or you want to see a certain video on something. I'd love to do that if I can. You know, I work for a living like all of you do. So I don't have a whole bunch of time, but I'll make time for this, that, and the other. Stuff that I can't accomplish for you. I'd love to do that. I think that's about it for now. In future videos, we'll go over other components like what I use for powder measuring and my actual press that I use and dyes and so on and so forth. If anyone cares, then I can go over that. It's pretty simple. So once again, thank you very much for listening to me. I kind of rambled on there a little bit. That's okay. That's what these are for. I'm not a professional. I'm just someone that kind of really enjoys this hobby. And I'd like to interact with other people within the community, so that's why I'm doing this. So thank you very much for watching, and God bless America.